today I wanted to address um, salesmen and the future, and how um, our whole perspective on our reality when we wake up in the morning is sold to us, has been sold to generations before us, so much so that we have convinced ourselves to sell this to ourselves and our children every day. And the idea of the mainstream itself is no less than like 10 layers outside of our maximum potential, our maximum experience, even our like baseline experience. It's taken down. Its infrastructure is based on taking down the sensory projection fields, the sensory experience fields, uh, the sensory connective fields. Everything that involves our senses is being manipulated to be sucked out of our systems, and it to be considered as like the main, the main dish, the main course, the main focus here on this physical reality on the earth plane as human experience. See, we get distracted by um, time time that gets manipulated and shrunk down into ideas of time, um, with such like, you can see the manipulation of like how the psyche is trained to think a certain way, with how, and to shrink it down even further, just in the United States, the mandatory stuff, like Christmas is mandatory for everybody in the United States that is living here, on a so-called the most like mixed group of individual on the whole planet in this one country. Yet there are so many things like Christopher Columbus Day that just passed, and even the mentality of having like only certain states be able to change from Christopher Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, and like what that does to the individuals who just like don't even have no real like, it makes people like have no connection to what they actually feel or what they might actually be experiencing on a level that they can see in other people's eyes, and then they can feel in other people's experience and can talk about with other people, but it's really illegal in a sense to go any further than that. Like, it's pulling teeth to make what's real just regular basis, just to speak to each other. And so I'll get back on topic of what I really wanted to hit on is salesmen, money, and the future. So, for example, today is October 21st, 2015. This is the day that in Back to the Future, the movie Part 2, that was considered the future in Part 2, which is the only time they went to the future. Part 1, they went to the past and then went back to the future. Part 2, they went to the future, and then Part 3, they went back to the further past. So these are all manipulations of of like so like in 1985, when you see the future according to Hollywood, is connected straight to technology and the government and what we consider as the future. They're creating time, they're creating psyches, they're creating levels of thought that allow, or actually enforce um, the ideas that get projected out there inside the individual. So now, like, so when you create the future like that, you actually take away people's power by looking and say, okay, if you project a future such as the Back to the Future movie, you still see in the future it's totally ran by a certain race of individuals. It's all technologically focused. It's all this and that. And this goes with all movies of the future, all ideas of all the future movies are all based upon destruction. They're all based upon the military industrial complex taken to a technological evolution. That's what the future is programmed to be here, and it's all manipulated that way to have people be more comfortable with the Borg mentality, the technological merging of humanity and the transhumanist movement that is being manipulated to be the next future, like what our future is all about. You look at Ex Machina, you look at Her, the movie Her, the guy just in love with his phone, the person, Siri, pretty much Siri. All your information comes from technology. Like, this is a big program that gets manipulated out there, and the politicians are none other than salesmen. They only are out there and have only been out there to sell the levels of interactive future with the people, and the people who mean to control and manipulate the future. The politicians are there as like a personality, a face to segue in like the introductions to what that is. So by the time, so like the Hollywood sets the time space out this far, like they set time all the way out into an idea of, it pretty much gives like a buffer zone. So movies are out there to set the timeline this big. Politicians are out there to work with the timeline this big. The education system and the police department work with the timeline that's this big, and the entire program is designed to work with your time internally. So the military industrial complex, the prison industrial complex, the education the university industrial complex, all these complexes come into the complex internally, that it amplifies our hopelessness, that giving your power away to your ideas, your now ideas that have been installed as your future. So these salesmen are out here to sell you appetizers of a prefabricated future that is already designed to fail. It's designed to fail, so whatever that next design is that was the original intent to install gets brought in to clean up the mess. So the powers, the controllers that be today, they work with installing jeez, like they're installing a fan next door. You can still hear me anyway. So yeah, there's always construction going on, so I'll work with it. There's construction going on everywhere you go. There's construction going on in order to keep you in a state of, like, thinking that you're evolving, thinking that you're in the future. There's all these condos going up everywhere around these streets. These are to make you think like it's development, like it's good for you. It's the future. Like, no, this future is being manipulated to be an idea of the future, so it can be, so that anything else can be set out. So like they're building a school, a K through 12 school down here. Right down the street there's another K through 12 school up the street, Oakland Military Institute. So these are the military mind. So it's the military industrial complex mind that gets sold with force, and then the monetary mind is what keeps you away from actually living your experience. So, like the American dream is another thing. It's based in hope. It's based in the future. So the American dream is based on like start here, work your way up 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 here. Before you know it, you're gonna have all of this. That's your entire life, pretty much. That whole work your way up. They bought your life with an idea, and if that idea gets amplified enough to look real and seem real with things like the news and Hollywood and celebrities are put in your face, politicians who reinforce it, military industrial complex that scares people so much that they would go into doing what is pretty much inhuman. The prison industrial complex cleans up the mess of the people who don't buy into the system, and the monetary, the fiat currency psychology of the entire masses, not only of an individual country, but of the entire Earth plane, are surrounded by walls, pretty much. So if your psyche, if your imagination goes here, you hit that wall. If your imagination goes here, you hit the military-industrial complex wall. You hit your fiat currency wall. You hit your education system wall. You hit the prison system wall. You hit racism wall. You hit sexism wall. You get history walls. All these walls that get put up around us over time that we can't seem to get out of, because we are constantly being told that the now, the moment, the now, and the future looks like this. It looks like something that has been like installed and says, oh, this is what we're tired of this, we're tired of this. So like Bernie Sanders, he comes in right now, he's like talking about things that that he's part of like the systematic disassembling and moving in. It's like a shifting of gears, and it's the facade is to look like it's for us, it's for the people. But if you look further into history, and history repeating itself, and history of I'll go into that into the next video right now. But it really, you got to see like okay, so they sell money. Money's already been sold into our psyche. The military-industrial complex is not being spoken upon. They're not talking about removing these military bases. They're not talking about peace. It's all just an extension of what already is with a bow on it, pretty much. And the hopeless mentality gets projected even more when you have we got 20,000 people showing up to listen to this, such and such and such. Like, they're just reinforcing more and more people who are not really understanding the depths of this program, who have actually bought into the hopelessness of this program and giving their power away to an individual who looks a certain way and sounds a certain way, but actually is working for the same system and their next gear. So if we shifted to fourth gear in the civil rights movement of this motor, then what's happening right now is shifting into fifth gear. We're shifting into fifth gear, and it's the fifth gear of control. And I'll stop here and I'll go on to the next one, the fifth gear of control, and the foundation to all that in the next video. So until next time, thank you for joining me, and peace, love, and harmony.